throughout the cycle of playing through Base Rise and Sunbreak, there really isn't any feeling of doubt or dismissal of the Amatsu arriving in the 5th generation. Not one soul in the Monster Hunter community feels uncertain or cynical about the chances of the Amatsu coming back. There were even a sizable amount of people who thought that she would have arrived earlier. But that updated roadmap with the section Elder Dragon on it absolutely puts any form of doubt to rest, especially with what I've mentioned earlier with the similarities between Rise and Portable 3rd, or how really appropriate she could be in a game like Rise. The chances of her not coming back is actually the real surprise, and not the other way around. I really feel as though I'm a bit late to this discussion, since it's made the rounds about 2 or more weeks ago, but I will try to cover it now whilst it's still new. Basically, I've been so focused on the topic of Amatsu in Title Update 4 that I didn't really delve in further towards other theories and news regarding the next update. First, I did know about this little rumor going around before I did my Amatsu video last week. However, I didn't think much of it due to me not really researching any further into this topic. Secondly, a very important source for this rumor on Reddit got deleted unfortunately, so I'm only going by summaries and posts from other people who have read the source. So any info that I will be reading off of might not be as concrete, so feel free to blame me for being late on this, otherwise I would have screen capped it. And lastly, this video will mainly revolve around speculation on the rumors rather than going into detail on the leaks and if they are legit. So we're basically gossiping on which potential monsters could show up in Title Update 4. So let's run it back from last week's video. I do feel however that Amatsu is an inevitability for the future of Sunbreak, so I'm definitely sticking by her arrival. However, for right now she'll have to wait because we've got a lot of stuff to go over. Right, rumors. The TLDR of it goes like this. A few months ago, data mines were obtained leaking various monsters, and sure enough, they've been correct. It stated correctly that in Title Update 3 will include Chaotic Gore Magala, Risen Kushala Deora, and Risen Teostra. Next, it showed that in Title Update 4, it will include a risen form of Shigara Magala, and interestingly enough, a returning monster from Iceborne. And additionally, new Turf War animations were leaked. Now one thing to note is that every monster in the game has some sort of unique ID number. And in these new Turf War animations, sure enough one of these code numbers belonged to a monster from Iceborne. Right, so first off, a risen Shigara Magala could seem possible, seeming how all 3 forms of the Magalas are present in Sunbreak now. Plus, it would make perfect sense story-wise for the Shigara Magala, with his whole frenzy gimmick clashing with the Curas in the game. So as a whole, this is the most plausible inclusion for another Elder Dragon joining the Risen gang. Although we still have Elder Dragons like the Valstrax, Malzeno, or the All-Mother, so there is still a chance that it will not be Shigaru, at least for the winter update. Personally for me, I don't particularly mind to have more Risen monsters as they are a perfect endgame content, mainly for new armor sets or more so, challenging quests for people who've done what's left for the game. However, at the same time, I feel as though they don't really give the same amount of excitement or fun because essentially they're more buffed up versions of their original counterparts, which I ended up calling these Risen monsters Sunbreak's equivalent to Arc-Tempered monsters, but with more explosions. Although I wouldn't write off these Risen dragons completely though. Sunbreak is a G-rank game, so more challenging content getting added to the DLC should be welcomed with open arms. Right, with the new Risen candidate out of the way, let's get into the main topic for the gossip. This returning entry from Iceborne. Going back to that leaked Turf War animation, the particular ID number that's attached to it, EM124, belongs to Velkhana of all things. Now do keep in mind that this info was taken from the main source that I mentioned earlier, which got taken down, so in essence I'm going into this blind. Okay, so going further into this, I found more and more mentions of Iceborne's flagship monster being grouped into Title Update 4, with small details such as this returning Iceborne monster being affected by the anti-flight jewel. The Velkhana, being a flagship of Iceborne as well as a flying monster, fits quite perfectly into these rumors, and the further you go down this topic, the more it becomes clear that this ice dragon could be next in line to coming back. And how fitting would it be for Iceborne's flagship to return in a winter update? It all comes into place when you think about it. So with the leaks and data mines out of the way, and Velkhana being our main topic for discussion, what do we make of it? In last week's video, I've said that the Amatsu felt like something that should come to rise sooner rather than later. From her aesthetics alone to how the game that she came from felt similar to Rise, Portable Third's Elder Dragon will return. And surprisingly, a lot of people are looking forward to her returning, myself included. So, what about Velkhana? Well, for one, I'm actually glad that we're moving away from more fire monsters being added to Sunbreak. Yes, I know the title for the DLC should give it away that adding more fire monsters would make sense, but quite literally I prefer some more variety with regards to the things that I'm fighting. Plus, Aurora Somnicanth and Lunagaron are fine, but a post-game ice-type monster would be something that I'd actually be looking forward to, seeming how the endgame of Sunbreak consists mostly of anomaly investigations. And with regards to Velkhana's return, there are surprisingly a lot of factors to look forward to. Velkhana's armor and weapons were great back in Iceborne, so we could see the return of the Frostcraft skill coming back. Her fight could be tweaked and changed to be more fast-paced to keep up with the wirebug mechanic, plus I do rate her theme song, and especially her Arc-Tempered theme. Also, to be honest, there really hasn't been a proper world presence in Sunbreak. We only got returning world monsters in Rise, and after that, nothing. No Legiana, no Aldebaran, not even Nergigante. So something as strong as the Velkhana being added to Sunbreak could give the roster more depth and variety, and also difficulty. So seeing the return of Velkhana is surprisingly enough something that I would actually look forward to, and her addition to the Sunbreak roster would definitely diversify the post-game. Once again, I do not hate the anomaly investigations taking so much of the endgame content, but having to face newer, more stronger monsters like the Violet Mizitsune, Chaotic Gormagala, and potentially the Velkhana would really give the Sunbreak player base more things to fight than just leveling up their afflicted investigations. Of course, she isn't entirely perfect though, given the fact that Iceborne is still fairly a recent addition to the series. Having its flagship comeback kinda dampens the surprise for the update. Plus there's still a lot more monsters that loads of other people would rather see come back, all the way to past generations, so seeing Velkhana, a flagship monster that was just introduced a few years ago, have priority over other monsters seems a bit weird. Additionally, even though she's the cover star for Iceborne, for some players she isn't really the best monster to come out of Iceborne's roster. Some people like Runa Nergigante, some people like Sharizvalda. Come to think of it, there are loads of monsters in Iceborne that pretty much stole Velkhana's spotlight afterwards. Safi'jiiva, Namiel, Raging Brachydios. I mean, for me, she was a solid storyline monster, and her presence in Iceborne was big, but after beating her and once you've reached the post-game, she really hasn't been relevant until the release of her Arc-Tempered version. And I know opinions are subjective, but the general consensus for Velkhana is fairly mixed, with some people either loving the Elder Dragon and others calling her mediocre at most. She isn't the most unique Elder Dragon, and her fight isn't as groundbreaking to say the least. And to the people who really feel indifferent about her, she's just another Kushal Diora skeleton with more ice, which I kinda understand. However, it shouldn't be ignored that this is a flagship monster, and a more recent one at that. And as mentioned before, having more variety in a roster gives a lot more benefits to Sunbreak in the long run. Is Velkhana the absolute perfect candidate to come back for this winter update? Well, not entirely. But for me at least, she isn't the worst. Although, let me know what you think about her. Should Iceborne's flagship monster return instead of another monster? And if not, what other monster would you rather come back? Let me know what you think down below, leave a like at the end if you've enjoyed this video, and until next time. This whole video was a lie. The mystery Elder Dragon for Title Update 4 is Altura from Stories 2. Deal with it.